So, as I was recording, the news just came down that Chadwick Boseman died of cancer. Um, and I just wanted to talk about how he's been an inspiration to the Black community and to all lovers of cinema. And I remember the first time seeing him in the movies. It wasn't even from Marvel movies. It was from his portrayal of 42, which I actually was already planning on covering on the podcast. Uh, how he acted as Jackie Robinson, the first African American baseball player, and his portrayal really meant a lot in that movie. And just it just saddens me that this news came out. He was so young, and he just really meant a lot to everybody in the community. And it's just crazy. I'm just sad. I'm disheartened, and I wish the best to his family and to his friends, and just rest in power, Chadwick Boseman. You mean a lot to us, so thank you. Man. With that being said, let's start the show. Man, it's just so tough, man. I'm Luis Agustin, and this is A View to Film. Welcome back to A View to Film. Rejoining me, Mr. Alberto Hawkeye, Mr. Tony Stark, aka Anthony Escobar, back in the building. What's up, guys?
Doing it up, having a great time. How about you, Berto?
Que lo que wah.
All right. So we are officially here. We're going to talk about Avengers Infinity War.
Full disclosure, we're still drinking, by the way. For those of you that don't know, you hear some jingling or ice in the background. That is not a random person trying to break into our rooms. It is because we are enjoying a nice, cold, alcoholic beverage. Just enough to fuel our thoughts for this incredible pod session. Another shout out to my boy doing great things over at Play the Tape. Oscar, I see you, baby. Just keeping it up.
Play the tape. Also, Jameson sponsor us.
Jameson. 2 weeks we've been doing this podcast. Why haven't you sponsored us yet?
Oh, little if you knew. But please let us continue with the awesomeness that is this podcast. Luis Agustin.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much for that intro. So here's the way we're going to do this one for the Infinity War. You guys are in my panel. I'm going to just go ahead and fire off some questions, and we're just going to we're going to cover everything. All right. Wrote a couple of things down, and feel free to go on the soliloquy every now and then whenever you want. But to start the podcast, we get finally Thanos makes his appearance. He comes into the movie. My first question as an average fan, was the Infinity Gauntlet nerfed? Tony, take it away.
Based on the Marvel Cinematic Universe's version of the Infinity Gauntlet, yes. I mean, if you had to go back and divulge to what has been done with the Infinity Gauntlet, I mean, one of the best examples I could come up with right off the top of the gate is the Illuminati arc when Captain America, believe it or not, actually wielded the Infinity Gauntlet at one point and had to destroy not one but several different worlds, divulging across of each other. So when you see it in the Infinity Gauntlet in 1991 version, Thanos is literally blowing up planets, moons, universes at will simply because he's just testing out the power.
Right.
So what you see here in the Infinity War is just literally a tease of the possibilities of what Thanos is capable of.
Now that we've gotten into that, and I mean, I'm going to issue a spoiler warning to start off the podcast, but I feel like the entire world has seen this movie, but I'm just going to throw that out there. Now, I'm going to kick this one over to Alberto. Next question I got for the panel. Thanos in this movie, pretty much his whole plot is I want to get rid of half the population of the universe because we're running out of resources and pretty much we're going through COVID-19 and we can't sustain all these people, right? So in the comic books, which we alluded to on our previous podcast, his whole goal is to please Mistress Death, right? If for those who know, he is in love with Death, who's incarnated as a mistress, and she's pretty much the one who tells him get the Infinity Stones, eliminate half the universe, do it all for the love of me. What, in your opinion, Alberto, what would you have taken, or would you have shown on the film? Would you have gone what the Russos decided to, or would you have picked more closer to the comic?
I'd rather honestly take it the way that they did, just because of the simple fact that if you take it the comic route, the whole movie in itself, or the whole series, so to speak, the one movie after another, it would probably become just redundant. So everything was leading to this war, and then at that point, it was just like we're at the war. Let's just figure something out. And I honestly think that would be the best way. I don't think they talked about that specifically in the movie itself. It would have been nice to like at least bring it up, instead of the way that they started out the movie, to try to give everybody an idea, like, hey, I'm in love with X, Y, and Z, and this is the what was brought to me. I have the gauntlet, and I'm initiating this whole thing because of this.
Okay, okay, that's fair enough. Tony, next question for you. The Avengers are coming in from Civil War. They're broken up. They're disheartened. They're not unified. If the Avengers, let's say, didn't go through that Civil War and fight each other, would they have gotten picked off by Thanos that easily? Your thoughts?
Yeah, they still would have gotten their asses beat left and right, bar none. With a plan, without a plan. Um, what we don't realize yet in the Avengers Infinity War is, again, there are a lot of more pieces in the offense side of, the Avengers, so to speak. With that being said, like, they have no recollection of Doctor Strange. They don't know anything about Guardians of the Galaxy. Captain Marvel is apparently helping out other planets somewhere else in the universe, and God knows what else.
Back in the blockbuster
Yeah,
days.
back in the blockbuster days, taking a beer and the whole nine. So, with that being said, even if, let's say, the original Avengers were all together, they still would not even be able to stop what Thanos had already in his possession, let alone be able to stop what was to come.
Wait to piggyback on your question. That's probably why they started the way the movie started, is because it was the whole Thor and Loki little scene, and then they show, oh, we have a Hulk. The last time they used that, they were like, oh, Hulk is the big bad dude.
Their trump card.
Yeah, their trump card, and that's how the movie, or the two movies, started essentially. And then you find out that the trump card is literally nothing.
I am glad you brought that up because that was one of the first fan questions that I had. Why do you think that Hulk was taken out of the game so quickly? And mind you, so we go ahead and preface this. Thanos is still not at full power. And he only had the Power Stone when he first entered the movie, which he just collected. Why do you think he was able to beat the Hulk so fast when he can regenerate? He gets meaner, he gets angrier, and from your basic comic book understanding, that's what I'm coming, from that point of view. I'm not in depth like you guys are. From my understanding, Hulk is like a top dude, like a top ranking dude. Why was he just nerfed out like that as well?
But you also have to think about Hulk in itself in the movies. They never showed Hulk's true form. That's number one. And then number two is going back to what you were saying as far as the comics, and then versus the story of basically killing 50% of the universe. It's kind of balancing the movie at the beginning, like saying, hey, he has to do this, but at the same time, the big bad wolf, so to speak, that you guys think is, I can not only abuse, but I can abuse without having the gauntlet. And you see him just like, jogging in place and just like doing the good old 1-2, 1-2 against Hulk. That means that he was literally joking with freaking Hulk. If he fought Hulk mediocrely pissed off, Hulk would have been annihilated. Well, that version of the Hulk would have been destroyed.
Absolutely. I mean, just to piggyback of what he's saying is the Russo brothers were basically aiming to show the audience that guess what? The Avengers trump card that is the Hulk that they turn to not only for utter destruction, but to turn the tide of any given conflict based on the sheer strength, rage, and the abilities that he is capable of is nothing compared to what Thanos is. I mean, Thanos literally, as they show in the first scene, can not only overpower the Hulk, this version of the Hulk, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe without the gauntlet, but literally turned him into a sparring partner, to say the least. They were just basically portraying to the audience that Thanos is not the one to fuck with, and he's here to stay, and good luck with dealing with him for the next 2 to 3 hours. Enjoy, strap up, because shit's about to go down.
One thing I do want to do is go ahead and give a shout out to the Russo brothers. And I want to give them a shout out for two different reasons. Number one is I love that in their movies they do a cold open, and they pretty much bring you right into the fight, where Thanos is just like literally demolish Asgard, demolish Thor, demolish Hulk, and like you're already brought into that conflict right away. And they do that very well in the prior Captain America movies. The other thing I want to give like a big shout out to them for, shout out to the Russo brothers, is like, if you've seen in the Marvel movies, they gave pretty much Banner a monologue explaining the conflict right at the beginning, when we see the story, which is good storytelling from my eyes when you get somebody to like summarize what the issue is. Because I felt like a lot of fans, and like that's why we did our prior podcast, is fans would just come in and say like, "Oh, Avengers is out, sure, I'm gonna watch it." But you get somebody to really explain, summarize what the issues is, who the heroes are. It draws in that crowd. What do you guys feel about that?
You also gotta point out that the Infinity War, literally starts after Ragnarok. So those people who saw Ragnarok know, why Loki, Thor, and Hulk are together, and why, the pivotal, that ship in itself, where Thanos is literally destroying, terrorizing everybody, what that is about. Basically, the ship that all three of them were a part of, that he intercepted and did what he did.
Perfect, perfect. You pretty much summarize it like that. So, you know, before we even get to further like into the movie and we like, saw the first scenes, we got introduced to everybody in the conflict. I want to take everybody back down memory lane, and I'll start with you, Tony. What are your first memories of when you saw this in the theaters? Like, because we had the hype that was building up for all these years. We finally wanted to see Thanos come into the big screen. He was teased so much in all the films that you saw. You didn't even have to see all the films, but he was teased in a lot of the movies that we saw. What was your first impressions when you first saw this film?
I mean, right out the gate with the opening scene of just Thanos literally decimating everything that Thor busted his ass to save in the previous movie, which is Thor Ragnarok, and letting him know that I didn't kill everyone, I just killed half, which is basically just throwing his weight around kind of thing, is just the entrance alone, the weight of that one scene, even to the eliminating, or the elimination, I should say, of Loki in front of Thor's eyes, who was
Right,
said to be, the strongest Avenger, so to speak,
right.
outside of the
Arguably,
Hulk.
arguably. Once again,
Arguably,
he technically speaking, my man came in
technically
hot
speaking,
because
yes. I
he
mean,
eliminated two of the strongest Avengers off the
yeah,
bat.
like right out the gate, like here you have the Hulk, who was like the culmination of the strongest Avenger versus Thor, who's arguably the strongest Avenger. And here comes Thor, here comes Thanos, and he just basically teabags both of them. It's just like, your Avengers are what? Kind of situation. So it's just right out the gate with that one scene, just sets the tone for the rest of the movie to let you know, hey, guys, this is not going to be an easy ride. he just took out two of our strongest sort of quote unquote Avengers. How the hell are we gonna deal with this now? Wakanda, help me. Vibranium, where? It's just like at this point, as an audience member, you don't know where this is gonna go. So I can honestly say I'm happy that that was done because one, it wasn't what I was expecting, and two, it goes to show that guess what? The man behind the scenes, all these years that has culminated up until this point, it was not just a puppeteer manipulating lives and
Right.
thoughts and
Right.
people around you. This man can pull his own weight even if he wanted to. So I'm happy with how things turned out to begin with. I'm happy with the portrayal of Thanos at the beginning of the movie, and I am not disappointed in the one bit, and therefore that is why I enjoy the rest of the film.
Right. So we pretty much go through the beginning of the film. This Thanos comes in super hot, on fire, and then we pivot to Bruce Banner, like I said, like that the Russos did. He pretty much gives you the layout, and he's the herald that comes in and gives them the warning, right? We get caught up to what's going on Earth. You know, we're seeing the Avengers, we're seeing everything that's going on. He's already sent his minions to go ahead and retrieve the time stone, right? So that's where we are as far as the plot. When he comes in, he already has two stones because he got it from both of them, which is the Tesseract, like we said previously, and also the Power Stone as well.
And the Tesseract, for those that don't understand, is actually the space stone of one of the six. But continue.
And also in the movie, he actually started with the Power Stone because that's the one that he used towards Thor when he was tormenting him in front of Loki, so he gave him the time stone.
Right. He actually recovered that from the Nova Corps, from the Guardians of the Galaxy, from their entire premise of actually their introduction into seeing the first Infinity Stone on their end. Uh, Thanos just basically went to their planet, destroyed it, took it, and came back with like a crack. So that's the best way to say it.
Here's my next up question for the panel. Alberto, you take this one. We get the quick pivot to Wanda and Vision. Rank them as a couple. Go.
That's Wanda. Wanda and Vision, it's so random. Honestly, me personally, it's so random. Like they're trying to make a love story in between this war, and it's I don't know, it's just weird. Me
It,
personally.
do they have do they have a I know this is kind of random, but do they have a love story in the comic books, or did I miss something there?
Well, they do, but the thing is, the way that they brought it into the movie, it was kind of just like shoved in. It felt like, so it was just like, yeah, there's a love story, but at the same time, all this X, Y, and Z is happening. Like Thanos is coming, so like the way the movie started, Thanos is coming for the time stone, and then at the same time, they're trying to pull in a love scene that should have been developed prior, and it's just like no, like this is not the time to try to develop this.
Right. So then that's what I'm saying. Like, as much as I praise the Russo brothers for doing what they were doing, like, why do you feel like they had to show that as far as the film, like to build that tension?
I think it's to build attention and also to try to, I guess, give homage to the comics, like just to have it there, to try to do it as best as they possibly can before things, go out of whack. Um, I think, yeah, that's pretty much it. But yeah, I think they should have developed a little bit more because it was just kind of a little bit left field to me, in the movie wise.
Exactly. So now that we're painting the picture, we see the overall aspect of what he's doing. It's pretty, pretty much clean cut as far as like what his objectives are, what he's doing, where he's going, and then obviously he sends his crew to go ahead and take Earth. Would you? All right, so I'll shift this one over to Tony. Would you have changed perspective, you as Thanos, gone to Earth, and then have everybody else do the remainder? How do you see that?
I mean, to be brutally honest, Thanos' energy has always been about, or rather his character outside of just like his stoicism and everything, has always had like a narcissistic point of view when it came to uh, acquiring the stones, meaning that he felt that he was so superior that he didn't need to go down and wreak havoc and to do the dirty work or to do the grunt work to acquire these stones, that he felt that he was superior enough in his intellect and his logic and his power that he could send those of his followers to do so. Part of the reason why he even sent Loki to begin with
Right.
in the Avengers to try to take over Earth to make acquiring some of the Infinity Stones even easier.
Right.
Again, he didn't know that there were a lot more in play to begin with on Earth. This was more like a trial run to like try to embolden someone who already basically has not necessarily like their pride or their wherewithal like stricken. It's just mostly like, I see potential in you to be one of my followers, so I'm going to send you, and I'm even going to give you a boon that is the Mind Stone to get shit done for me. And Loki's entire premise and his entire motivation was not necessarily to impress him, but it was
Right.
more out of fear of, if I don't do this, this guy is going to be on my ass.
Right. Right.
So his entire premise was just like, let me get this done desperately, because it doesn't matter what my feelings are. I could try to swindle this guy, but I don't know if I'll be able to swindle him. And that is literally embodied in the first scene of when Loki tries to pull one over on Thanos. And Thanos is just like, I'm not about that life, dude. Like, I gave you a shot. I know what you're about. You're a swindler. So I'm never going to trust you again. And if you think you could pull one over on me, then guess what? It's going to cost you your life. And that's exactly what happened. So when it came to sending his minions down, he's all about like, they could get it done with or without my help. It's not about laziness. It's not about pride. It's just more about his narcissism when it comes to that, where it's just like, those kind of tasks are beneath me.
You also have to add that Thanos already knew that the Tesseract was in Earth because of the whole Avengers movie. So if you think about it, he gave him that task, one, to show his worth, and also to try to grab the other stone that is already in Earth as a test run to see like if is he worthy enough to become my minion, so to speak. And he also gave him like what Tony said, a little boost to try to help him get that task done, and that didn't work out.
All right. So at this point, guys, overall, I feel like a majority of the people have seen these films, right? So we could say like a lot of people have seen these films, right? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do a slight pivot, and I'm gonna ask you some more fan questions, and we're just gonna get to like some small debates that are off topic, right? So number one, Alberto, who is the funniest Avenger, and why? Here are your contenders. You got Drax, you got Rocket, Spider Man, Thor, Ant Man, Iron Man. I gave you all those options. You can't pick nobody else. Who you got?
Drax. Do I have to think about this?
That's a no-brainer. I mean, come on. Anyone who's seen the
What?
films, they would all know.
No,
It's
no.
either
There's
Drax
no
or
way.
Rocket. It's either Drax or Rocket, bro. Those are the two, in my personal opinion. And I'm
In
going
your
based off
personal,
Berto. It has to be Drax or Rocket, dude. Drax
no, no, but you
is.
can only pick one. You can only pick one. Like,
I mean, if he's gonna go with Drax, I'll go with Rocket. Only because I'm only gonna emphasize the simple fact that Drax is devoid of logic and he's incredibly simple. And Rocket just doesn't know how to interact with humans to begin with. His
right.
only experience is nothing but negative. So he thinks when it comes to human interaction, just off the gate of just anything as simple as acquiring something, he thinks in the human version of, only humans are out to do better than me or to get something out of it. So if we're gonna go ahead and do this, then I need to get something out of it in order to relate.
Right.
So
Dude, the freaking Drax. To put it simple, is Guardians of the Galaxy 2 when he finds out that he's in love when this dude's in love with Gamora. He's like, he loves you. Ah, ha, ha, ha. That's it. That part, that scene in itself. That's it.
lies. If I had to choose one scene from Drax specifically, would have to be again in Avengers Infinity War when he's just standing still with the potato chips and he thinks he's invisible
He's
because nobody's
invisible.
noticing.
That too. That too.
Like, And then with Rocket would have to be in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 when he's in the forest scene and he set up traps for all those scavengers or whatever the hell you want to call them. Where like trying to look for him and his crew, and he was just constantly just throwing all of them up into the moon, kind of like situation, just like juggling them all, and he was just playing and toying with I don't know how many fucking soldiers. So, like I said, I agree wholeheartedly with Berto, with the funniest being Drax. If I had to choose outside of that, again, would have to choose another Guardians of the Galaxy member and go with Rocket. What about you, Lewis?
I'm gonna say Rocky. I just can't stop thinking about these scenes. But no, let's keep it going. Let's keep it going. Here's the next hypothetical I got from the fans. So you're Thanos, right? Both of you are Thanos. You only are allowed one stone. Which one are you taking? I'll start with you, Alberto.
Damn.
You have to beat all the Avengers, but you're only allowed one stone. Since I let you choose first, once you pick one, me or Tony can't pick that one.
Power Stone. Can't go wrong.
Okay. Why?
Just in itself, just if for those that've seen the Guardians of the Galaxy movie, that's where they initiate the Power Stone in itself, and the immense power that it has, which also starts the Infinity War. That's when he overpowers Thor, also torments him in front of Loki, and I don't think he needed it, but at the same time, nonetheless, it gives you a definite boost in power. Can't go wrong.
Tony.
For me, I'm gonna go ahead and on a limb and say for me personally, it's a no-brainer. I would say Reality Stone. Why?
Whoa! Wow, I did not see that coming.
So the pros and cons to the Reality Stone would be very similar to in the Infinity War, how Doctor Strange used the Time Stone to look into the various different scenarios of how the fight between Thanos would turn out for them to find an actual victory against someone who possesses how many, and like the amount of stones that he already possesses, which is very unlikely for any of them. So
Right.
he got through over a million kind of scenarios, found one, so to speak. I would choose personally the Reality Stone is because I would eliminate all of that. Meaning, imagine there's a scenario where you're Thanos and you only have the Reality Stone, and these guys are pulling out all the stops. I mean, all the stops. And at any point in time, you could activate that to begin with before the interaction would actually happen. And
Right.
you could go sit down, have a beer, enjoy a nice ham and cheese sandwich, and
Right. And
watch
they're fighting
all of these
themselves.
guys fighting themselves or fighting a version of you and the
Right.
whole nine. And you're just sitting back, just like, oh, that was cool. You want to try that again? Like the time stone doesn't give you that. You know what I mean? It just gives you scenarios of possibilities. Reality is literally what it sounds like. You are manipulating reality to the T. So
Right.
whatever you want people to see, that is exactly what they're going to see. There's no mutant power that could counter it. There's no power to this day that in the comics that could counter it as well. So Reality Stone would be my definitive choice.
I honestly would say the time stone for me, but now that you said reality stone, I'm like kind of sold on it now. But if I had to pick one, I definitely I would say the time stone because like you can like alter their time and their reality too from like what I quickly Googled and I was like kind of like, ooh, how do I use this to my advantage? It's kind of like alter all kinds of times, not yourself and not seeing the future, but you can do whatever you want, whatever you please. So I would say
Exactly,
time
because
for
when you
me.
think about it this way, it's just like the reason why they didn't divulge into like a Terminator kind of timeline
Right,
in the Infinity
right,
War was just like, let's go kill baby Thanos kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
right,
Like
right,
they
right.
didn't do that, and they didn't divulge into that because they explained that again in the following film of divulging timelines. You're only attempting to manipulate your own. So if you're attempting to manipulate your own, again, you will end up creating other branching timelines, but you don't fix your own, so to speak. You know what I mean? So the time
That's true.
stone has its limits, whereas in the reality stone, I could be in Cancun right now, sipping on a mojito while you guys are fighting on the moon, and I could give two shits. You know what I
Shout
mean?
out to Cancun. Shout out to the
So,
Cancun.
so basically, Reality Stone is the +1 version of the Time Stone.
Pretty much.
All right, all right. I mean, I'll give it to you. Listen, you won that one. Now let's get into the meat of the film. And instead of me narrating and jumping around where we're going in the movies, we're going to get into most important questions that I usually like to ask all my guests. We're going to start with you, Alberto. What is your favorite quote of this movie?
The favorite quotes.
For the audience out there, that was him doing his Hannibal Lecter impression.
I think my favorite quote would be, I guess, in the beginning when Tony Stark was actually trying to, I guess, picture everything what Bruce Banner was trying to tell him, and he's trying
Right.
to gather all that information because he kind of knew that there was this like side character, the kind of like the puppet master, so to speak. So he's just gathering all this information. Then Doctor Strange is talking to him. He's like, "Shut up! I'm trying to figure this thing out." And then it's just like he's trying to literally devise a plan of how
Yeah,
to
that
get this dude
interaction.
right now.
Right. Right. Yeah, that's true. Tony, what do you got?
Probably for me would have to be between two, which is a hard two for me. It's,
You're only allowed one, sir.
I mean,
Because you might be copying mine. Go ahead.
I got a second one.
I mean, if
No.
we all have a lot of favorite quotes in this movie, and no, I will not quote a Drax quote because that just automatically wins in every single counter. Or just, and I know that's what you were thinking about to be like,
Actually, no. Believe it or not, my favorite quote actually comes from somebody you wouldn't expect. But I want to hear yours first before I tell you mine.
I mean, there's so many good ones because again, this is a culmination of 18 films.
True.
So it's characters, personalities, all divulging together into a hot pot, so to speak, of great script writing. Shit, off the top of the head, I would just. It's hard not to be biased, and I'm trying my hardest not to be biased, but I would just be biased for the sake of the podcast. Is if you, it's just all this for a drop of blood. It's just like that culminates exactly what the entire Infinity War movie itself has, the precipice of it, so to speak.
Right.
Like everything leading up to that, from what they've planned out, what they've tried, manipulating Thanos, trying to fight Thanos, trying to, you can't meet him in terms of power, so just trying to outmaneuver Thanos and all of that,
Outthink him as well.
outthink him as
Yep.
well. Like for Tony Stark to be like literally the last line of defense in that moment, and he's pulling out all the stops that he could think of on the fly, from getting a moon thrown at him to having his projectiles turn into bats to go against him, like you name it.
Right.
And for Thanos to just turn around and look at him and just have a small scratch on his cheek to be like, he did all that for a drop of blood. And that's not even counting all the other people that have been trying to fight him for like the last
I'm
fucking 3 hours.
I'm just gonna say this. Shout outs to Tony Stark because Thor and your boy Hulk couldn't even get that much. So I'm just gonna put that out there. We're just gonna throw that out.
Yeah, like he pulled out all the stops to get a scratch, and Thanos was like, all that for a drop of blood. Is one of my favorite quotes. I mean, second favorite would have to be, if you throw another moon at me, I'm gonna have to get really pissed off.
Right.
And then of course the Drax one is just like, who's Gamora? I'll throw it, I'll raise you another one. Why is Gamora? It's just like, what the fuck? It's just so stupid and dumb. And by the way, for those that don't know, that was entirely improvised. That was not on the script.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, entirely improvised, and they just
Wow.
kept it into the film.
You actually led into, I wanted to transition into favorite scenes, but before I give you my favorite scene, is my favorite quote was from Spider-Man. You can't be a neighborhood Spider-Man if there's no neighborhood. I think that
Yeah.
summarizes what the hero's journey is about. I really like that. It's so simple. It's done by a B character, right? In as far as like the weight of this movie is. Even though I love Spider-Man, he's one of my absolute favorites, so I got to give him a shout out, and Tom Holland as well. But it's delivered so sincere because he's showing you what all these heroes are putting on the line. Like we said at the very beginning, they all came in at odds, right? All of them beefed at Civil War. If you haven't seen Civil War, watch it. But they all beefed, they all went at odds. But when they were faced with their greatest challenge, they all came together and they know what's at stake. And that's humanity. And that to me was like the most impactful quote, besides obviously the Thanos one, which summarizes like what we led up to. And once again, to just give it away, my favorite scene is, simply put it, Thanos versus Iron Man, because of all you said, Tony. Like, you pretty much saw everything they had to give to this one dude, and all they got was a scratch from this guy, and that's the insurmountable odds that they were up against, and kind of like shows the weight of this film, which was done so perfect by the Russo brothers to show you that, like, you didn't have to watch anything else as far as comic book movies, but when you got that, you're like, holy moly, like this is what we're here for. You know what I mean?
I mean, I would have to say that was one of the greatest quotes. I mean, I can't be mad at you having that as your favorite. Um, I will say, quick shout out to the original Spider-Man animated series. You the goat. You're the reason why we're here.
Right.
But I mean, man, if I had to choose, maybe a second, third favorite quote would have to be Wong. You're invited to my wedding. Berto, what's your second?
The way that got the Soul Stone with Gamora.
Right.
That was a deep moment.
A soul for a
A
soul.
soul for a soul. Yes,
Yep.
that's very true.
He gave up his only one true love, and Gamara, which laughed hysterically, like, you don't love anyone, and he was like, no, I actually do. There's only one person in my whole life that I loved, and that was you. That, like, when she just stood like paralyzed, like, that was some strong words, and he had to do what he had to do. That was really deep.
So before we get into that scene, which is also an iconic scene, I wanted to know what you guys' favorite scene was, because I already told you mine. It's clearly Thanos versus Iron Man. But Tony, what's your favorite scene in the film?
My favorite scene in the film would have to be the fight between being the simple fact that you already took, Thanos versus Iron Man.
No, you can take it. I
No,
was just
no,
saying
no.
that.
Like let's divide it up a bit. Let's let the
Fine.
audience know there's more to this film besides the Great Iron Man. I would have to say Iron Man, Wong, Doctor Strange versus Squidward, and the guy that has no name and doesn't say anything in the fucking film.
He just grunts.
Yeah, he just grunts. Like when he tells him, he was like, "Earth is closed." It's like, "Get lost, Squidward." Like that scene alone, and then like him trying to transform the Hulk, and then the Hulk or Mark Ruffalo's character can't transform, and right away, Tony Stark just turns and was like, "Dude, you're embarrassing me in front of the wizards." Like, what's
Right.
going on? Everything about that had humor. Spider Man showed up last second. The fight between them versus a person that has telekinesis. Doctor Strange going out like a bitch. That's right, I said it. He went out like a bitch. Didn't even use his time stone. I was just like, what were all those years or so-called months of training that you were doing? Because you just passed out before 5 minutes into the fight. But with that being said, that has to be one of my favorite films of the entire film. Again, there are countless others. I mean, Berto, what do you think what was your favorite film? What's your favorite scene from the film?
Well, Lewis said it, is the whole Spider-Man, Iron Man, Doctor Strange scene. That was, to me, that
Right.
was that whole scene, that whole fight, the three against one. That was crazy because they were just like in another planet. They had literally no other choice. It wasn't like they can just like fight and move, fight and move. No, yeah, they just had to go ham. They just had to, do what they needed to do.
Wow,
And
so no love for Thor's ultimate entrance in the Wakanda scene. No
Nah.
love for that at all.
no,
Nah.
No,
I,
no,
I
bring me Thanos. No having Captain America run 30 miles faster than Black Panther for some chimichurri. Like none of that.
no,
That Wakanda gets no love
dude.
no.
whatsoever.
I mean, it's Wakanda has its own film, by the way. But I was gonna say that I think that if I wanted to show you the essence of what this is about, it's clearly all there. You know, I know when Thor showed up, and that was like, from my experience of when I first went to the movie theaters, it got the loudest cheers. But the movie really held into, and notice that right afterwards, that's when we see them fighting him, because like this is what it's about, the culmination, guys. Like, I don't think I have to say anymore. Like, I'll let you guys rant a little bit about it, but I was just saying that, like, yeah, it got the most cheers, Thor, when he showed up, but There was no weight behind it. You were killing nobodies.
No, honestly, I had to say the moment that had the most weight outside of Gamora's death would have to be, bar none, towards the end of the film when you see the leaves rustling, you see all the Avengers near Vision, and they're like, something's coming. And when Thanos just walks through that portal, and he literally one shots every single Avenger you could think of, even B listers, C listers, your grandmother, your great grandmother, like it didn't matter who was in front of him. Nothing was stopping him. That scene alone is arguably the ultimate culmination of the entire film, where you literally meet an unstoppable force, and there is nothing you can do about it except but watch.
Right.
But what messed up that scene to me was the fact that Thor had the opportunity to stop that, and then he did it, but he did it a little bit too late. Because if he did it 2 seconds earlier, that movie would have finished. It would have been over, done.
Well, clearly he was too busy blowing up a whole bunch of different like Vanos soldiers, like nobody grunts, and the whole nine. And of course, the most another famous line from that great Avengers film would be, "You should have gone for the head."
I want to just bring in the central theme of this movie, and let's see if we all could agree on this. Like, it's about sacrifices. Would you guys agree?
No, I would say despair.
Despair. Why would you say that?
Because you also got to think about how the movie started, where it's after Civil War, everybody's kind of like in awe between each other, and the whole movie, it felt like to me, was like everybody, the Avengers, quote unquote, banding together. The
Right.
problem was that they banded together a little bit too late. Obviously, Hulk's freaking ego was trashed. Thor lost his brother, and then everybody else got their ass kicked. But to that extent, it was just like it was kind of like they gathered up to that, like, yeah, we're Avengers, ha ha. And then at the end, Thanos was just like, nah, it was too late, bro.
I was gonna say the reason I bring up sacrifices, and that's kind of like what I got from my rewatch of the film, is every time, I guess if you recall back throughout the film, we see one person making a sacrifice for the greater good, right? So at the very beginning, Loki sacrifices something, and he lost out to Thanos, who his will was stronger. Then we have Scarlet Witch, who's tested with Vision. We have Doctor Strange, who's tested with giving up the Time Stone. We have Gamora, who's tested with losing her sister, Nebula. And like the whole time, each character that's brought up, they're asked to make that sacrifice and they can't. And Thanos is the only one who actually does. He makes his ultimate sacrifice to achieve his goal. And that's kind of like the way I saw it, that he had that unjust in his pursuit as far as like getting the stones. Tony, what do you think about that?
Personally, I would say I would agree only to a certain degree. Meaning, like, I would still lead more towards despair because Thanos is basically supposed to be the embodiment of that. And that entire movie is just a culmination of cascading failures, meaning it's like witnessing a highway car wreck just get worse and worse and worse and worse, and you have no control of it. So you are literally just, you're not in the driver's seat. You're just literally witnessing this as an audience member. So you're witnessing something that's you have no control over. You have an idea what might possibly happen or go wrong, and instead it divulges in an entirely different way. Because up until this point, for the last 18 films leading up to here, again, I might have the number wrong. I apologize in advance. I'm just going off the top of the head. Point is, all these films that have led up to this, the good guy won. Tony Stark saves the day. Captain America saves the day. Uh, Thor saves the day. Whatever the case may be, it's always been the good guy wins. And this is a film where, for the first time, you see that the heroes that you know and love for the last how many years go through hardships, sacrifices, despair, to the point that they've tried everything in their own bag of tricks and they still fail. There is not a lot of movies outside of The Dark Knight, which I, draw reference to, shout out to them, and Christopher Nolan, that I would say that has literally a hero failed wholeheartedly, or rather a group of individuals failed wholeheartedly, and literally have the bad guy at the end of the movie smile into the sunset.
Yeah, exactly. He did that. He winked. He gave you the look like
Like
mission.
I'm surprised he didn't look at the camera and said, "I told you so, bitches." Like it's ridiculous. Like you literally just sat there for over 2 hours, just watching the favorite heroes you know and love for years on time, storyline on time, just literally just get smacked around like a cheap whore. The best way to fucking describe it, because holy crap, like it to the point being that at the end of the film, everyone in that audience, whether or not they've seen all 18 films or 17 films or 20 films, whatever the fuck it is, if they've literally sat there through all that time of the Infinity War, they've never seen anything like it, to the point that they could just sit there and turn around to their fellow compatriot or to their colleague and just be like, holy shit, this motherfucker won. The
Right,
Avengers lost.
right. The greatest heroes assembled.
The greatest heroes assembled, the Earth's Avengers, the Earth's mightiest heroes,
Right,
just got wiped like a fucking toilet paper on like on a person's ass cheek. Like they got mopped, bro. So how many films can you say that happened to? I mean, again, I would always draw reference to the franchise of Star Wars. Why? Because you can't definitively say that Marvel is the first one to,
no, of course
create films and start a franchise. I mean, you got Indiana Jones, you got fucking Star Wars, shit, even fucking Fast and the Furious turned into a franchise at a certain point.
not. Right,
Point being, Marvel tried to do something similar to that, except they were culminating everything that they were doing to have a sort of end game, so to speak, meaning like this is all leading up to a certain point,
right,
meaning all of
and
this is a major arc, not just one individual story relating to the other. You know what I
exactly. I
mean?
was just gonna say, like, and quickly to just draw reference to what you said, and you brought up something that's very near and dear to me. Is this is their Empire Strikes Back, one of my favorite films of all time. It just shows you that when the villains win, they win hard. Like, holy crap, what are we gonna do? Like, you have to push your heroes to the point that you can't see how they're gonna overcome this great threat that just came. And that's, I guess, to summarize what you're saying and what we all feel is that this is why we appreciate a film like this, and we can see the value in, like, hey, you bring them to the brink of extinction, literally. Like, how are they going to come back? They're missing all, what is it, like more than half of their team. Like, who is available to even take this guy down at the end of this film? You know what I mean, Alberto?
What I was gonna say is that you also have to look in the other aspect as far as Thanos' story. They somewhat developed in a sense of his minions trying to get the stones, him stepping in, and then eventually him actually changing completely as to me as a character after the whole Gamora situation.
Yeah, let's talk about that. What I feel like that's one of the most pivotal scenes in the movie, besides obviously the clash between him and Iron Man. Like, go ahead, shed some light on that and what you feel about that scene.
Yeah, that Gamora situation to me literally changed his mindset. Like, yeah, he was evil. He had his mindset, but at the end of the day, like there was always this last thing that wasn't letting him, I guess, go over the edge. But once the whole Soul Stones scene happened, which obviously once again, spoiler alert, that he had to kill his own daughter, and not only kill his own daughter, but the only person in the whole universe that he loved. Once he had to kill her, and he actually decided in his mind that he actually got to, it was either his daughter or his plan essentially to continue his master plan of taking over the whole universe and everything. And he once decided on that and killing her, like that Thanos, that flip, it was like literally like I don't care about anyone. The only person
Right.
that I cared for, I killed with my own hands. If I
Right.
killed this person with my own hands, who the hell are you to get in my way? I have no feeling whatsoever. I have more feeling of the freaking mosquito that's in front of me more than you.
Tony, before I get your thoughts, I wanted to just go ahead and mention one thing, or like to my understanding, more as an average fan. So they never, or correct me if I'm wrong, in the comic books, do they ever talk about how the Soul Stone is won or found? Because I feel like, and I want to give a shout out if they came up with this on their own, speaking to people who write comic books, like the Russo brothers really painted a perfect picture. The fact that you have to sacrifice something, which once again, shout outs to my main theme, sacrifices. You have to sacrifice what means the most to you in order to get what you want to achieve. And that right there, shout outs to you, Alberto, like you painted it so perfectly. Like he literally gave up the only thing he ever truly loved to get the soul stone, and that was also another like big aspect of shows you what Thanos' character really went through.
I mean, based on my understanding, the Marvel Cinematic Universe has only divulged only a small fraction of what how the Soul Stone was portrayed in the comics versus how it is in the cinematic universe. Um, the best way to counter it, or rather to explain it, would be if you remember in Infinity War, after Thanos does his big snap, at the end that he was in some sort of like limbo mirror world kind of thing. In reality, what he
Mhm.
was in actuality the Soul Stone, where he was speaking to his version of what he felt or how he sees Gamora, no matter what age she is.
So educate us on that, because I was actually going to ask you about that scene. I noticed in the film they did show that pretty quickly, and I guess I got kind of confused. I was like, wait, why are they showing this again? And then it got brought back to life.
So
Like,
in the comics, how they portray the Soul Stone or how it works is when used, when a person eventually loses his life, based on the Infinity Gauntlet, or rather the Soul Stone itself, their soul is then absorbed by the actual Soul Stone. So the Soul Stone itself becomes an alternate reality where all these souls reside, both living and dead. So what the Russo brothers are trying to portray that yes, the Soul Stone has homage to the originality of what it was portrayed in back in the comic book history of it, by portraying that one scene with Thanos speaking to a baby Gamora, or rather a child Gamora, because that's how he envisioned her or how he sees her, no matter what age, no matter what
right,
lifetime.
that
That
father
is
daughter
how he, yeah,
relationship.
that father daughter dynamic, that memory of how he met her and what made her fall in love with her, that's what he sees. So in the comics, everyone that's been consumed by the Soul Stone, it's based on the user of it, meaning whoever used the Soul Stone, their memories of whoever is portrayed of whoever's soul resides in the stone is what they see. So, fun fact, I'm jumping way ahead to another potential podcast for those that are listening, and I hope you are. Uh, Endgame, deleted scene, is a very same scene where it mirrors Thanos, who is speaking to Gamora, where it mirrors Tony Stark actually speaking to his daughter in Mirror World, aka the limbo of the Soul Stone, because he was actually using it. So that was kind of like a last good job, buddy. Here's a last gift to you. But
Right.
again, nothing in the actual movie leads up until that point for him to be able to experience that. So that's why it was deleted to begin with. But the whole purpose of that idea is the soul stone is more than just a soul for a soul, where it is no matter if they were going based on the comic book standards, everyone that was consumed or dead from the Thanos snap technically would be residing in that soul stone as we speak.
That was kind of like my understanding how I first saw it when I first saw the film, because I had, once again, some average comic book knowledge. Why didn't they use that kind of like, oh, they're residing in this stone versus how they portrayed it that they just disappeared?
Well, in this movie in itself, like going back to what he was saying, right before the whole Gamara thing, when he had that little flashback that she was a child, and he was talking to her. So obviously he has two daughters. One is Gamara, and the other one is what's her name again?
Nebula.
Nebula. So Nebula, he really saw her as just like whatever, but Gamora was actually his daughter. So when he said daughter to her, he actually meant it, and he had that flashback of saying daughter, and then her responding back, "Did you do it?" And he's saying yes, and she's saying, "And what did it cost?" And he said everything. So that's when he realized.
Another great quote in the movie.
That's when he realized like everything that he did, there was a lot of things that he had to give up in
You
order
can
to
say it.
reach.
You can say it. Sacrifices. I know. I
Yeah,
won. I know.
yeah, he had to sacrifice a lot in order to get to that point. But at the same time, like what Tony was saying, that all the stones up until that period, more than likely, all affected him all in one shot. The moment that he got the soul stone, so he's getting all this remorse, all this grief from all the
Right.
people that have died, and that was that's a lot of weight on one individual. And he
Right.
also said that before, that he's willing to be that person, that individual, to change the universe because he's willing to do it. But was he really able to do it, or was he really mentally and physically able to do it? That is the question, and that's what we later find out.
Right. I do want to thank you for like sharing that because you actually brought that perspective. I didn't even think about it that way, but it's true. It's like he changed once he made that decision, and I feel like he always genuinely thought that he could be the only one who bear the brunt of the decisions of sacrificing all these people, in the universe and have a better universe. Because that's overall his ego. Like Tony was saying, that he feels like he can do no wrong, and he feels like his ideas are, what's the word
Obsolete.
I'm looking for?
Absolute.
Obsolete, exactly, obsolete. Like that's it. This is the only way to fix mankind, the way I'm going about it, and I'm going to make the necessary choices to get this done.
Yeah, but then after the whole Gamara situation, and then him killing 50% of the universe, that completely flipped his mindset. Because like you said, he thought like, oh yeah, I'm good to go. I'm 100% to do this. But after it happened, he was like, holy crap, what did I do? Like that's kind of the feel that you got. Like, yes, I completed my task, but at the same time, what were the costs? Like he actually really felt that.
What I was going to say is not necessarily from a moral standpoint, but a question I'll even divulge to you, Lewis, is based on the monologue that he had on his home planet previously, that he saw that it was barren and desolate and
Right,
devoid of life.
right, right,
And he's there having that conversation with Doctor Strange about how the motives behind everything that he is doing is based on the example of what happened to his home planet. Do you feel as an individual, or even today in this standard of what we're living in now with COVID-19, or fucking hell, go hypothetical with zombie outbreak, for God's sakes, do you feel that there are even a little bit of hypothetical semblance or realism, or hell, anything to relate to based on his actions alone?
I was gonna say, actually, I'm glad you brought up that point because as I was watching this film, it kind of brings up that moral question. There are certain places, in this earth that will limit, how many children you can have because once again, it's like resources. We have an amount of resources that we depend on. And if we have more mouths to feed, then what happens? We keep depleting these resources faster and faster. And the more technology, I guess we can go down like a black hole of like ideas, but the more people there are, the more depending on technology we are, the more things, the more resources we use of this earth, we need to replenish that somehow. So it's either we replenish it by changing the ways we do things, which I can't see that because we just keep getting bigger ideas of how to make our lives easier, which breaks down the planet that we're living in, you know? And not to get all philosophical, but then like, okay, so then what do? You know, what is the right answer? Because I don't feel like killing half the population is the right answer either. You know, like we can't do that. Like it's not our choices to take somebody else's life. But it's like, wow, like you really have to ask yourself that question. And something, you know, to tie back to the movie, Thanos, he said that like they called me a madman. But if you're on a council and like let's say like he was in a senate or something like that on his planet, and everybody's coming up with ideas and nothing is working and things continue to break down and look how barren it became, why, if he suggested something, you know, once again, yeah, he was a madman, but he's still trying to think about what else is going on. And I would like to mention stuff from Endgame too, that I could pull some examples, which we saw what happened later. But, you know, we're not even going to get into that. But it's kind of like that question, like he made the ultimate sacrifice, and then what are we going to benefit from that? You know what I mean?
You also got to remember that the end of the movie would have never happened if he never had that connection with Gamora.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, he could have gotten there. He would have found out all the information that you have to go up there, you have to do X, Y, and Z. But if he doesn't have that one true love, which technically at that point everybody thought was a gimmick, even Gamora, he would have never gotten the fifth stone, the final stone. So that technically the movie would have ended. But that was like the whole flip of the movie. Like, yeah, I did have actually one person that I loved. Yeah, he did love someone. That was the whole like, holy crap, what the hell's going on in this movie? And then going back to what you were saying, Lewis, it was just like how much are you willing to give up? But then once you give it up, it's like you have that on your shoulders. Like, damn, I killed X amount of people, billions and billions and billions of people to complete this. Am I worthy enough to still be alive? Am I like what am I supposed to do now?
I mean, that's what really makes Thanos a very interesting villain. It's not necessarily someone you could relate to in terms of moral standards, but it's someone you can understand. Meaning, we understand where he's coming from. We understand his motives. We understand why he feels the way that he feels.
Right.
And we also understand why he has love for Gamora, despite her having her reservations about, despite how he raised her, is because in his mind, or in his warped sense of logic, I raised you to be a
They
fucking
called me a
warrior.
madman.
They called me a madman. Like his warped sense of logic is, I'm raising you to be strong so that you'll never have the hardships that I've had, which is incredibly relatable to any kind of parent that we live in this day and age. But his end game, so to speak, or what his true goal is, was to eliminate half of humanity because resources were finite. Space is finite. Life is still thriving. We don't
Right.
have the resources to feed those that are already around. So at the end of the day, it's something that you could understand to, and that's what makes him such a complex villain in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. In the comic book versions, he's a lot more simplistic than that.
Right, right, and that's what we were touching on earlier. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, and I just give credit to that, the fact that they went down this route and didn't use anything of references to what he did in the comic books, because it's like, okay, his drive and his motivations in the comic book are literally like just to please somebody else, and that didn't hit home harder than what you just said, that sacrifice that he brought all of that on himself, which is like, wow, like you can relate to him even in this day and age of what we're going through as far as like what resources are available to us. You know what I mean?
Yeah, at the end of the day, a lot of people don't realize that the Infinity War was never about the Avengers. It's not about the characters in it whatsoever. It's about Thanos' road to getting to what goal that he had envisioned from the beginning of the so called Infinity Saga till now, to reaching his goal, figuring out why he wants to do the things that he wants to do, figuring out why he has these mannerisms that he does, figuring out why he has the logic that he does. And as you watch the movie, you see it literally manifest, and little bits and pieces just constantly pollinate to literally get to where he is at the end. Because at the end of the day, it could be a cameo of him grabbing the gauntlet of him saying he's going to do it himself. It could be a cameo from another movie of a tease of a possible Infinity Stone. But at the end of the day, his intention and his motivations has always been, I'm going to eliminate half of existence to save the other side of existence.
Now going piggybacking on what Tony said, he like every single decision that he made up until the end of the movie, he never thought it twice. I'm assuming, or
Right.
we all assume that it was all planned. He had this, that, and the third happen. If something were to come out of his plan, he would decide immediately. But the one thing that he started in his plan was Gamora, and that was to me the pivotal part of the movie that he just said, "Crap, am I willing to do this?" And then I think he just went with his gut, his mindset. Like he already went through all this. Like I need to finish this. And
So
the moment he did that, it was just like that's it. Like I'm at 100%. I need to
right,
finish it
I have
through.
to commit.
Yeah.
So, Lewis and Berto, I'm actually going to throw this question to the both of you,
Please.
despite the fact that I'm actually a panel, would be do you think that Thanos, or not necessarily orphaned, but took Gamora in with the sole purpose of doing what he did later on in life with sacrificing her for the Soul Stone? Meaning, do you think that he needed to find something to love over time because he saw this coming? Or do you think that he genuinely thought that this would not be the sacrifice needed for the Soul Stone?
I honestly, the way I saw the movie, I honestly think it was genuine. The fact that he didn't know that this is what he needed to get done. That's kind of like how I took that scene. It's kind of like, wow, like it came full circle. And I guess that's why she laughed at him. It's like, oh, wow, like you were finally trumped. It's going to stop you. And I guess she didn't realize that he really did fall for her as far as their relationship. And I think that it just, came about organically. I think that that's the reason why something I was going to mention in the film, that we see him taking over or like doing that to other planets single-handedly, doing the sacrifices for them as far as like cutting down their population. And he just took her in, and it's, you just kind of develop that relationship. One thing I want to say, and kind of like to piggyback off of that, I feel like the Russo brothers executed this very well as well. And I'll tell you why I knew they would, because they were the ones who developed that Iron Man and Spider-Man father-son relationship in the movies when the new Spider-Man was brought on. So like they already had a knack for kind of telling that kind of storytelling. And I feel like as far as the movie goes, it was just that organic relationship you build with someone. You don't know what's going to happen. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know what Thanos would have done if he didn't build that relationship with Gamora. That would have been crazy.
No, if he never built it, he would have never gotten the Soul Stone. Literally, point blank, he would have never gotten it. But then at the same time, it's like you said, there was that buildup because at the end of the day, if he never got that opportunity to get Gamora, his other quote unquote daughter, he had literally no relationship with her. He had no
Right,
relationship with anyone, honestly. At that
right.
point, he was just like you said, he was just knocking out planets and their civilization because he had no connection to them. And then he got to a point where he fell in love with his adopted daughter, so to speak, that he literally killed his fucking her family and just adopted her. And then he fell in love with her because she embodied him, so to speak, like growing up, and he saw a lot of himself in her. And like you said, the Russo brothers developed that. Like they showed like little scenes, bits and pieces, but it all led to that final scene of the movie where Gamara was just like, ah ha ha, whatever, like you
Yeah,
lost.
yeah, yeah.
And he's like, no, I didn't lose. Well, I didn't lose yet, but I'm going to lose something. It's
Right.
something the most important thing than these stupid stones. That's when I was just like, God damn.
To go ahead and end my panel, I have two final questions for each of you. And I want both your answers on this. The number one most important question, since, like I said, we all pretty much basically know what the movie's about, highlighted the most important scenes and what like the real grasp of it is. The rest is like a lot of storytelling, a lot of tropes, but at the end of the day, Thanos completed his mission. Is there anything that you would have changed from Infinity War in your opinion? Characters, scenes, anything at all? Like you were the director. You saw that it was cut. What would you change? Would you move things around, or would you just keep it as is?
The one thing that would probably stick out for me the most would probably be uh, how Vision was portrayed. Because when you see how Civil War was, or the introduction of Vision in Age of Ultron, like he is a new powerhouse of a character, and the fact that they portrayed him to be, constantly, either injured or weak or submissive, whatever you want to call it, would probably have to be one of my biggest pet peeves of the movie, because Vision is capable of so much more.
That's
And
true.
the fact that he was like, "Oh, like a spear is not stopping me from phasing," is just like, that's not what you're all about, dude. Like, you have flight, you have strength, you have so many other things that you could use in your arsenal,
Right.
and for you to be just constantly, um, hampered by the fact that you can't phase through stuff was like a little bit of like, really, dude. To me, um, the I would also say outside of Vision would have to probably be, I would say, the Battle for Wakanda. I loved everything about that up until the point of
Shout out to
that.
the Jabari.
Shout out to the
Shout
Jabari,
out to yo. They were still chanting, bro. They were still taking names.
because
Gotta
they
give
made
them
it.
a shout out.
Because to be brutally honest, they only made it seem like 500 people lived in Wakanda versus like an entire city and civilization. So it was just like a
That's
little,
true.
yeah, like, it made only they literally made it only seem like you only had a handful of warriors. It's just like, oh, we got all the tribes together. You only got 500, dude. Like, really? All
Listen,
the tribes that have been, hiding out in Africa, that got vibranium. Like, you could pick and choose a lot from the film without necessarily divulging from the actual narrative. But like, those are like little things that you could just like always improve upon. Um,
I'm glad you brought up the vision thing. And Alberto, before you give your answer about what you would change, I was gonna say like I do see why the Russo brothers made the decision as far as like Wakanda and like kind of because of screen, like the screen and how they're filming it. Like they got to try to fit in more of the main characters so you can see them and highlight them, which is fine by me. I didn't have an issue with that when I understood it as far as it was cinematically. To piggyback off what you thought about with Vision, I think that it's true. If they would have like in an alternate universe, if they would have left Vision the same way we saw him in those other two films, they could have easily just had Thanos go one on one with him at the end when he showed up. You know what I mean? And kind of like just spruce that up. It's like, all right, everybody's wiped out. Here's Thanos. And it's like, all right, Vision, Thanos, let's go. Because he needed, like maybe you have that last battle, like that last gasp. Obviously Thanos still wins, but perhaps maybe they wanted one of their main characters that they've developed for so long, like Thor, to go ahead and give that last gasp, which makes sense, and you pay homage to that. You know what I mean? So I guess that's the way they thought about it. But I completely agree with you where they made Vision obsolete and they made him seem different from what he really
Weak.
was.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
just made it seem weak and submissive. And hell, even Scarlet Witch, again, this is divulging from the comics. Like, this woman literally has the ability to wipe out all mutants from existence with like a
But
thought.
I will say though, she did wipe out a stone, so you can see her powers. But once again, it's
Yeah,
like
but it took what, 2 hours for her to
right,
finally feel what she was
but
up. Like, it,
but
it, a perfect example of that would be, remember when one of Black Panther's like Kingsguard, whatever the hell you want to call it, she literally said, "Why the hell was she standing up there all this time?" Like, for her to like understand the amount of power that Scarlet Witch has at her grasp, the simple fact that she just wanted to protect Vision, and in the end it just didn't work out. It's just like, it's a perfect culmination of just like what every audience member and every comic book lover understands up until that point. It's like, why the fuck is she all the way up there when she could just literally just show up and just like wipe everybody out? But the only reason why is because, hey, with showing how overpowered she is, we would not have a movie. So I get it, I guess.
so real quick, Alberto, what would you change?
So first and foremost, you also have to keep in mind, X Men is not a part of this war. Um, Fantastic Four is not part of this war
That's
because
true.
of legal reasons. But aside from that, and those extra characters that were in the comics that could be in the movie in itself, my pick would have been, which what Tony already alluded to, which is Scarlet Witch. Scarlet Witch is fucking absurdly strong. Like they paid no homage to how absurdly strong she was in the first movie. But not to pick her since already discussed. I would say Hulk
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
because Hulk started off, as the big bad wolf. He got knocked down to his position, so to speak. But they
Right.
never showed that character development, like oh yeah, I got my butt whooped, whatever, this and the third. That could have technically been a way for them to show the true Hulk, the Hulk that we know and love. They could have just been like, look, listen, yeah, I was this Hulk. That was my timid version. Like I'm
Right.
gonna
Right.
show
Right.
you Hulk. Like you thought that first dude that you faced was me. Like, nah, this is me. I'm gonna put my hands on you and I'm gonna beat the living crap out of you.
That's
That's
true.
that's what I thought that could have happened. Like they could have done a better character development. Like like it was like I thought it was very beautiful, very great to show that in the beginning. Like what Tony was saying, that Thor and Hulk got their ass beat in the beginning. But that
Right.
character development, because they did it with Thor, they did not do it with Hulk.
We could technically screenwrite this, right? Alternative ending to Infinity War, where we build up Hulk, we build up Vision, and I could even throw another one in. We keep Thor the same. New hammer, he comes in, Stormbreaker,
Yeah.
three on one. Thanos with 5 Infinity Stones versus these dudes. Like, what's up? And we fledged that out. You know what I mean? Like that would have been like a ultimate comic book on screen. Yo, give me 20 minutes of these three dudes
You see
versus
what you fucked up. You fucked up immediately without adding one character, and that character is Drax. You know, throw that motherfucker in with that mix with his comedic relief. And at this point, he would be biting at Thanos' ankles, and it would have been the most hilarious thing we've ever
but
seen in a while.
we
So if
kept
you
going.
throw
We
Drax
kept
in, we got something cooking.
I,
Real talk.
I have no response for that.
Because you know it's true.
The only thing I can say is, like I said, keeping everything the same. Drax is stuck in space, but you're right. We have to somehow like he no. Here's the version we're gonna shoot. Drax bites his ankle when he teleports, and he fucking makes it to Earth, and then
No,
we get
literally, like dragging this thing through a teleporter. Just Thanos is emotionally completely, and you just see this thing just biting at the thing, like, I got you, Thanos, finally. Like,
exactly.
imagine that shit.
Yeah. So that's the version we're gonna shoot.
Absolutely.
Copyright it, Alberto. Write this down. You're writing this down, right?
Yes, sir.
He's
All right.
typing it.
All right. Good. All right, fellas. So we're finally at the end. So now it's time. Arturo's Fuentes MVP. Who should I start with? Let me see. Tony.
I mean, I'd hate to say it, even though it brings a bad taste in my mouth right now. I'd have to say MVP would be Doctor Strange. Why? Because he delved into the future. He saw all the many possibilities, and he figured out the one that they would all actually win, so to speak. Keyword being all. I put that in quotation marks. So yeah, it puts a bad taste in my mouth, but yeah, I would have to choose Doctor Strange as MVP for the Infinity War. And it's not like he went out like a bitch either. He put on a show too. So
Go ahead. All right. Alberto.
No, he took mine. Freaking Doctor Strange in that movie. Yo, that fight scene.
Nobody's gonna pick Drax. Like, what's going on in this?
Not in that movie.
comedic relief is not enough.
No, not in that movie. Dude, freaking Doctor Strange fight scene blew everything out the water just because he actually was using his moves like to the T, and like we were watching him actually fight, and it was just like holy crap. And you see Thanos like, God damn, who is this guy for a second, and then after a while he's like, okay, I'm a son you, like relax.
I mean, if you could caption that entire fight scene to a Naruto fight scene, like literally fight scene,
Yeah,
that's enough to say that yeah, Doctor Strange definitely put up a fucking put on a scene.
Well, I mean, I I hate to pick the obvious choice, but Thanos. That's just I can't.
Well,
I
yeah.
understand it's a cop out, but I mean, I hate. I can't see this movie having the impact, and especially so. I'll say this, especially the fact that we came from Age of Ultron, right? Where, like we talked on our prior podcast that, it was a letdown, fans wanted to see more, and we finally get the tease that we've been seeing throughout all these films, and he delivers. It wasn't the heroes could have played a better role, and we probably could have, like in our alternate movie, which we're filming right now, we
But they
we
still
could have
would've
shown, yeah, we could have shown them in a better light to kind of like even build it up even more. But at the end of the day, Thanos is unjust. That's it. He got it done. He needed to do what he needed to do, and that's it. Alberto?
If you really think about it, like if they did the whole character development with Hulk, just Hulk in itself, and show Hulk in the comics, Thanos would have been super cocky. He's like, I already beat your ass in the beginning of the movie. And then when he sees Hulk, he's like, oh
Right.
wait, no, I wasn't ready for this. Time out. I don't need these hands right now.
literally imagine like the Hulk just like grabbing the ground and just like throwing a mountain on him and just like, yo, eat that shit. Granted, he'll use a stone to be like, okay, fuck you, but for a little bit he'd be like, what the fuck? Like
Dude, that
Right.
rage Hulk, he can. I don't know if he can handle especially him like, being cocky, whatever. That he beat his butt in the beginning of the movie. Like he would not be ready for that ass whooping.
So, want to thank Tony, Alberto for taking the time, guys. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Before we head on now, Alberto, is there anything you want to plug? Any other shout outs you want to give right before we head on now? Or anything else you want to just throw out there as far as the movie goes?
Oh yeah, I forgot to add that in the last podcast. Shout outs to Johnny's Pizza Palace.
Ooh. Ooh.
That's what we've been eating throughout the podcast.
Like that.
hey,
Yeah.
Blue jelly.
Yeah.
Yo, Johnny's Pizza MVP.
Johnny's Pizza, right in the corner of
Chicken
Post and
slices,
Dykeman.
chicken pies,
right
chicken
there.
pies.
Yep. We gotta give them a huge shout out. Johnny's Pizza, you literally grew us up from pups.
Definitely.
We grew up with you, and come down to the corner of Post and Dykeman right there, man. Just huge shout out to them. Tony?
Best pizza you'll ever have in your life. The reason why we all have high cholesterol. Johnny's Pizza Palace, you're the shit. Last final moments, I would have to say, great job on the podcast, Lewis. You're doing your thing, and I can't wait to be on the next one. Hit me up when we're talking about Endgame. Another 2 hours to go into that.
Definitely, brother. You'll definitely get the invite, and that's it, man. Thank you for joining A View to Film. Talk to you guys soon.